This one's for the culture. Me and wifey in the room thinking of a master plan, thinking how we can influence the culture from where we stand. Knowing that our steps are ordered by the master's hand, still 10 toes down, we ain't switching up the stance. The mission of this music ain't just to make them dance, trying to tell them about the rock.
Welcome to another episode of The Bond Chronicles. I am the super and fantastic, the lovely, the world-traveling, the everything great that is with the world host, Raymond Bond.
Everything great that is with the world?
I am how I'm not?
I didn't say you weren't. That's just you. Ooh, babe.
No? Okay, well, maybe my wife doesn't think so. But I think that I am a high-value man. That, is that. So I am at Mr. Bond Chronicles on Instagram. I am at Mr. Ray Bond on Twitter. And I am joined by my wife and my co-host,
Mrs. Bond Chronicles on Instagram. Ms. Bond Chronicles on Twitter. I don't use it though, so don't be waiting for me to at y'all.
Yeah, I basically just tag her and stuff. I don't want to show her, and that's the extent of her Twitter use. We are the Bond Chronicles on Instagram, so please follow. We are on YouTube, so please like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. And even more importantly than that, please comment. We have Facebook pages, all of that. So we'd love to hear from y'all. We are on episode 10.
Are we?
Yeah, I just did it. Yeah. So this is episode 10. For those on EB Radio, this is episode 2.
2?
I think episode 2. No, this is 3.
No, because we just got back from Mexico. So.
No, we sent the premiere and then we listened to it there and then we listened to it here.
So this is episode 3?
It was episode 3.
I don't think that's correct.
No?
No.
So we're going to listen to it in Mexico?
Well, yeah, and that was this past Monday.
No.
We were in Mexico on Monday.
It launched when we were there.
Right, that Monday.
And so this Monday of this week when we were back, there was another episode. We weren't in Mexico this Monday. I was at work.
Wait a second. The days are all blurred together, but I have no idea. Either way, hi EB Radio.
EB Radio, we appreciate y'all. Yeah, because remember the government was in our EB Radio, our episode 2.
No, I don't remember.
The government?
Oh, okay, true. You're right.
Oh,
So yeah,
man.
this is the third episode.
This is the third episode.
On EB Radio, yay.
Hopefully you haven't turned off the radio while we got that figured out. But appreciate y'all. Go download the EB Radio app. Definitely shout out to everyone over at EB Radio, Black owned, doing black things for black people. Definitely appreciate the support there. So we have a great episode, I believe, today.
Oh yeah.
And for those of you who are still with us, and for those of you that are first-time listeners, you're going to get to see probably us in our truest form. And the topic that we're going to get into, I think, is something that I would say is polarizing, to say the least. But I think it's necessary for us to talk about, and so we'll get right into it. So, gender roles in today's society. You call it modern society, modern times. And we will stick with in America because that's all I can really speak to. In other countries, I know things are very different. But in this country, there's been, I would say, a renaissance of women empowerment in the last 10 years, maybe? 10, 15 years?
No, I was going to say it's maybe like 20.
20?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we were 10?
Yeah.
Maybe social media didn't really exist then, so I didn't see that. But when I was in middle school, I didn't see it on the level that I see now. When I think women empowerment, I'm thinking Me Too. I'm thinking that whole wave. But okay, you're a woman. I'll take your word for it. So obviously that has had an impact on culture. It has an impact on gender roles. It has had an impact on what women want, ultimately what men want. So just kind of a bit of a background from our perspective, you know. In generations before, women typically stayed at home. That's not a slight. That's just more so the reality. Outside of maybe the Industrial Revolution, when the men went away to war and women had to go to work, typically women have stayed at home, taking care of the home. Or they worked a job that didn't take her away from the home for extended periods of time. We have a friend that travels almost every weekend sometimes, and we know a bunch of people through our church and in our lives that travel on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And in many cases, the man has been left to, in some cases, be the caretaker of the home. So there is a regular complaint. I'll go with that.
Because it's definitely a complaint.
There's a regular complaint or concern from men and women that today's relationships are lacking the same values and structure that our grandparents, older family members had. But the fact is, and it's apparent by this podcast and the fact that you're viewing it, whether it be on YouTube or on an internet-based radio station or on an app on a phone, that we are not the same people as generations before us. So obviously that has had an impact on culture. It has an impact on gender roles. It has had an impact on what women want, ultimately what men want. So it's kind of a bit of a background from our perspective, you know. In generations before, women typically stayed at home. That's not a slight. That's just more so the reality. Outside of maybe the Industrial Revolution, when the men went away to war and women had to go to work, typically women have stayed at home, taking care of the home. Or they worked a job that didn't take her away from the home for extended periods of time. We have a friend that travels almost every weekend sometimes, and we know a bunch of people through our church and in our lives that travel on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And in many cases, the man has been left to, in some cases, be the caretaker of the home. So there is a regular complaint. I'll go with that.
Because it's definitely a complaint.
There's a regular complaint or concern from men and women that today's relationships are lacking the same values and structure that our grandparents, older family members had. But the fact is, and it's apparent by this podcast and the fact that you're viewing it, whether it be on YouTube or on an internet-based radio station or on an app on a phone, that we are not the same people as generations before us. And gender roles were clearly defined. Then I do think that they have definitely blurred. But we can get into a couple different pieces of that. But I guess kind of, what is your take on where we are from a gender role standpoint in modern society?
I guess first and foremost, I'll say in our household, it's one thing just because of how we function. But generally speaking, there aren't a lot of people that still subscribe to gender roles. For whatever the reason may be, the current shift in culture is that everybody can do everything and it's equal everything for everyone, equal opportunity for everyone in any field that you want to put it in. Specifically home gender roles. I would say that I think expectations at this point are unrealistic for both sides because we view gender roles one way and women look at it one way and men look at it another way, and then there's that gray area in between that a lot of people in relationships don't necessarily always get over. Like, and to me personally, I think the best relationships, people who have relationships that I try to model ours after, like, it's not even necessarily that I see that their gender roles are defined and they're comfortable in them. The way that they've structured their relationship and the way that I guess they do things that you would typically say, oh, well, the man is supposed to, well, something dumb, open the door before a woman walks through it all the time, or walk on the outside of the street and the woman walks on the inside of the street. Like, those things in today's society, and a lot of times people view them corny, but I still think they're important. I like that kind of stuff. You sleep on the wrong side of the bed, but you know, that's another conversation, or maybe later on in this conversation. It is interesting when I have this conversation with women.
Sleep on the right side of the bed if you move the bed the way I want it. But again, we can have that conversation another time.
Oh, we're not rearranging the room.
Okay, so naturally, then yes, because we have the room arranged the way you want it, I sleep on the wrong side.
Anyway, like I said, we don't have to have that conversation. When I have this conversation with women, and when I listen to men, or when I'm in a group setting and I hear this conversation, there's just this huge disconnect between what the expectation is between partners. And obviously we can get more into that. So, but for us, you know, we work it out as best as we can currently.
Yeah, that's one word phrase. So I actually disagree with almost all that you just said.
I'm sure.
I think humans are selfish. And I know for those who have been with us for a couple episodes, I'm the misogynist, pro-man guy, typically. And this episode is going to reinforce that.
Yeah, you're probably going to lose us some subscribers. Because mostly women listen to us, so...
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Not really. Sorry, not sorry.
Not
Shout
sorry
out
at
to Nas
all.
and Jay-Z. But no, I think gender role, people want gender roles when it's beneficial. I don't know a woman, and if I'm wrong, and you said more women followers than men, I don't know a woman that if she breaks on the side of the road, she wants to have to change that tire. I don't know a woman that wants to get up on a Saturday morning and cut the grass. I don't know a woman who, if the sink is leaking, she wants to have to go get a wrench and crawl up under there and take care of that. In my experience, a woman wants a man to do that. Vice versa. I know most women don't want to take trash out or change their oil. Can women do those things? Absolutely. But most women don't want to do that. Conversely, men, there are things that we are not going to want to do.
Wash the dishes.
I don't think anyone likes washing dishes. That's not a man thing. I was trying to think something like cleaning bathrooms, cleaning toilets. I don't think most men want to do that. Are there some that do it? Can men do it? Obviously we can. But I don't think that's something that in a marriage, most men, or in a relationship, most men are going to want to do. So I think that is the unique dichotomy that we have within these men and women viewpoints and value systems is we want gender roles when it's beneficial. If you hear noise in the middle of the night and it's a man and a woman in bed, the woman obviously wants the man to go check it out. If there's a mouse in the house or there's a bug or whatever, typically, and a man and woman are sitting there, the woman is going to expect the man to solve or fix it. And women love that. But then when a man requires a woman to take a step back in certain aspects, because when the robber comes in, you want us to step out. But when it comes to making business decisions or financial decisions or trip decisions or other stuff like that, you want equal say and equal footing. And that, I think, is the dynamic that gets lost. And you talk about, even in our relationship, where women want a man out front to a certain extent. And as women have become more empowered, as women have become more financially free, as women have become more educated, naturally they want to take the leadership role. As more women have had to be raised without a male figure in their household, women have had to take the ownership of that. And conversely, men without a man in the household have taken on some feminine characteristics and are not as masculine.
It's not feminine characteristics because it's not necessarily a characteristic to clean the toilet.
No, but their mannerisms, the way they view their perspective on life, is not the same.
Okay.
Like, I think men today are more argumentative than they were back in the day. Where men before were just like, I'm done with it and move on. Men today, I'm one, are a lot more argumentative than I typically believe that to be. I own that.
You're argumentative?
I'm very argumentative.
Oh, I know you're very argumentative.
Like, I don't think that's a surprise for anybody that watches our episodes or knows us. And I think there's more men like that don't just the idea of the happy wife, happy life. It ain't real.
I know. When the guy said that to us in Mexico, you were like, nah, that's not how we rolling here, sir.
Yeah. And then people try to laugh it off like, oh, no. Nah, it's not. That ain't real. That's not successful. That's why you end up single and alone or in a miserable relationship because you think it's only your way. And by you, I mean women buy the happy wife, happy life. That doesn't work. It just doesn't. And so I think there's been a shift because, and we kind of actually, I didn't see you had it here, because of single parent households, I think that's impacted both sides more negative than positive.
So yeah, there are a lot of factors into why traditional gender roles are viewed differently now versus when they were first culturally established. And obviously, white America had a lot to do with it. The things you'd see on TV, the cultural expectations of how a family dynamic is supposed to work, that has evolved in the last 50, 60 years. But like you said, the family dynamic is a big reason as to why I think gender roles have made such a shift. Marriage and, for what it's worth, divorce rates are much higher now than what they used to be. And unfortunately, a lot of times there are kids involved. Those leave the family, again, the family dynamic, it shifts. If the kids, depending on whoever the kids end up with, typically it's the mom. The mom then becomes the breadwinner, obviously, of that household. And then so she's making the rules, she's doing everything, as opposed to there's a team doing both things, splitting the responsibilities.
But I want to take that a step further. And I'm just going to speak facts. I agree with that, but I also believe, and I've seen a lot more, that when women and men, in a lot of cases, move on and they do get another partner, it's of the same sex. So even if there are two people in the household, you're still getting one point of view. So even if there are two people in the household, you're still getting one point of view, which is that of a man. And I don't care if there's...
Wait, what do you mean it's of the same sex?
Like, if me and you, hypothetically, and I'm not even going to use this as an example, I don't speak that. So you have a man and a woman in the house.
Yeah.
They have a kid.
Yeah.
They get divorced.
Yes.
Mom, I'm just going to use the woman in this case. Mom moves on to a new relationship.
Yeah.
New relationship is with another woman.
What does that have to do with anything?
So even your point that you were trying to make is the woman was doing it on her own. And so she's having to carry the weight. My point is, even when you add back in another partner, if that partner is another woman and you're raising a young boy, that young boy is being raised by two women.
Right.
So it's not going to get the same balance, even with two people in the household, that he would get if there was a man and a woman in the household. And vice versa. If it's two men raising a young girl, and depending on the lifestyle of the men or the women in these situations, that's going to have a huge impact on the way that child is raised and how they mature and evolve based on what they're seeing on a regular basis. And I believe the rise in same-sex relationships drives that a certain way, where before we had single parents. I think a lot of times today we have unmarried parents, but we have people that do have other partners, and we'll talk about people's lack of commitment. But I believe when there's two sexes of the same type, you still miss out even by having another person in the household.
So that's poppycock. because that's only been a thing, like seriously a thing, for maybe the last 15 years.
But that's the time frame we're talking about.
But this has been going on for much longer than just the last 15 years. We're 30, 32, we're 33. You're 33. Both of our moms were single at some point in another time raising us. My mom, she's your mom, watched their parents separate, be single moms, and the dynamic of their families completely changed. It's not just same-sex marriages, or maybe because I started to get offended and when you started talking about same-sex marriages, and I kind of missed the point.
Probably.
But I feel like either way, the family dynamic is different.
That's my point.
Then
so my point is, do you believe if a man and a woman raise a child, it would be the same as if two women raise that same child?
Depending on the values of those people, sure.
Not a chance. If you think two women raising a young boy is the same as a man and a woman raising a young boy, that's wrong.
There are different things, nuances of what a man teaches his son and what a woman teaches her daughter that could potentially be missed out on in same-sex marriages, relationships, or whatever. But does the child is not unable to get those values or in some other way or form? Like that's not honestly something that I would believe. Like, one, a lot of times there's a lot of other people involved in those children's lives. There are women involved, there are men involved.
Use our kids, for example. How many people are involved in our kids' life?
A lot.
Involved?
Like my mom, your dad, his wife, like,
that's it.
Fine.
So
not
you named 4 people.
And of the people that they see on a regular basis, most of them are women. So are you saying that our sons are going to miss out on something because they're mostly around women?
I believe, we'll be transparent. I believe, yes, the way Courtney was raised and how our boys were raised, there are things that they're going to get that she didn't get. Because she didn't have a male figure in her life up until she was 8. Now, how much will it matter? Because there's a male figure in her life now as she's going through a very important transition in her life. But do I think our boys would be as aggressive and fight as much as they do if it was 2 women or you were the only woman in here? No. Because I hear y'all, when y'all correct them and you try and stop them, when they're fighting. Whereas when I'm around, I let it happen.
Because that's the manly thing for boys to fight.
It is. And men will let that happen, and most men will encourage it versus women who will try to stop it. I'm looking at our life.
I mean, I'm looking at it too. This is not where I was going with this conversation. So, in the real world, what you just said is super offensive. Like, where
am I wrong? Where's the lie?
You can't prove that people who have same-sex relationships, their kids miss out on something because the other sex is not involved in raising the child.
So then you would say the same thing for a single parent?
No, because there are statistics that show that it's
so how
different.
can you say that if a child is raised by one parent who's of one gender versus 2 of the same type of gender being there, that they're going to get a different result?
What I'm saying is the statistics show that kids who come from single parent households they end up differently. There are differences in them, I guess, not physically, emotionally, and the way that they develop versus kids who grew up in households with 2 parents. Whether those kids...
But you don't have those stats.
No. Well, one, because that's not where this conversation was going.
Right, but that's my point. You're making an assumption that 2-parent household is 2-parent household regardless of who the parents are, and I don't believe that's the case.
Well, we'll have to do another episode then so that we can follow this conversation up because, like I said, poppycock. Anyway, what were we talking about? We were talking about factors that have changed the way we see gender roles.
Mm-hmm.
And single parent households have definitely changed changed the dynamic of gender roles. Whether it be a man who's got custody of his kids or a woman who's got custody of her kids, the children ultimately see that parent, man or female, doing everything. Whereas in a household with two parents, the load is shared. And you're looking at your parent, mom, dad, whoever, do everything that you would typically see someone do with their partner. And so then they grow up and they get used to, specifically, like I'll speak for a woman, you get used to seeing the person in your life who raised you do everything. So your expectation and the way that you feel is, I have to be able to do everything myself because I can't necessarily count on someone else to do it for me. Especially if the parent who's no longer a part of that the child's life goes like completely MIA, and it's like there's a whole another load of things that go along with that. But if you're used to seeing your mom, dad, whoever do everything, you grow up with a feeling of, now I have to do everything myself because you can't always depend on someone else. Even the people you're supposed to be able to depend on can potentially let you down. So I have to be able to do everything myself. And in today's generation of women, especially young Black women, we have been raised to feel, I've got to make all my own money. I've got to own this. I've got to own that. And if a man can't meet me at this level, then he's not even worth my time. Because if I can do all of this by myself, what else do I need him to add to the table? Go ahead.
Okay. So I don't disagree with that aspect. I think that is the case. And I think that is extremely short-sighted and we just listened to an interview where basically, because women make more money now, they think they're entitled to a completely different lifestyle and that nothing else is factored into that lifestyle. Because you make more money or you're more educated, you should have this phenomenal life all of a sudden. And I disagree with that. I think it's great that women make more money. I think it's great that women are now more educated. But that don't mean that you don't still need a man, and that doesn't mean that because you make more than the average woman, you should have the top 1 or 2% of men. And conversely, treat men that may not be on your level a certain type of way, or talk to them demeaning, or all of that.
It goes both ways, men and women.
I mean, I agree, but it's commonplace for a group of women to say, "Oh, that man's ugly and he's fat. He's unattractive." But God forbid a group of men were to call a woman fat or ugly or just go on her, they would kill those men because that's not okay. So if a man got a deficiency with his looks or he's not in the best of shape, that's perfect. That's fair game. And God forbid that he gets upset that you're criticizing him or were to use the term body shaming him. They would laugh that man out of said conversation. And he'd be looked at less than a man. He'd be looked at soft, as weak, as emotional, as sensitive. But conversely, if you do that to a woman, the man's trash. He's a dog. You shouldn't talk to him in that way. You should respect them. You should esteem them. You shouldn't say those kind of things. You shouldn't ask a woman her weight. Like, you shouldn't ask a woman her age. But you could do it to a man. And it's perfectly fine. I shouldn't be able to know a woman's credit score. I shouldn't talk about her past. If her past was, she was out here thotting and doing this, that, and other. But as a man, I owe it to you to talk to you about my past. So I just think that there has been this huge breakdown in expectations. And I think a lot of that has become because gender roles have shifted. And because women have taken a level of a masculine role and been raised as such, they've taken on some of that, but there's still a bunch that is not taken on. And so they still want to be treated as queens and princesses, but they don't want to treat men typically, in my experience, as princes and kings. And if you understand how royals work, it's not 50-50. But that's not popular. And that's not typically easily digested. And so there's a mix of these two dichotomies of equality, but esteem. And I think we got to fix it, because a lot of people end up unhappy and unfulfilled in relationships because they're going to get in it and it's not going to be what they want or what they see on TV, God forbid. And that's why the divorce rates are what they are.
But I think that's a mixture. I think that's a combination of a lot of different things. That's not just gender roles. That's just people not understanding who they are and what they really want out of their relationships. Not even specifically defining gender roles, but they don't understand what they want and they don't understand what they need for themselves. And then they get into a relationship thinking that that person is going to fill all these voids that they don't even personally know how to fill themselves. And so then it's a conversation that's difficult to have. I mean, even with us, our relationship, there are a lot of things that I've discovered about myself since we got married that I didn't know I was even really dealing with until the little flags started popping up in our relationship. And it was like, for transparency, like my temper. I didn't realize my temper is as bad as it is until we started having conversations or disagreements or whatever, and I would get upset. And at the, when the conversation was over, when the argument was over, and I'm reflecting back on the way that it transpired, I can't even necessarily pinpoint what made me so angry. And obviously this is something that I'm working on, but there are, I think, a lot of people go into, again, relationships not realizing that there are a lot of things that they have not dealt with.
I agree with that.
And then they get into the relationship, and if it makes it to marriage, again, I've said this before, I'll say it again, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Marriage you can't hide who you are in marriage. It just exposes more of you. And it exposes a lot of things that you might not necessarily want to deal with. Not just gender roles, because submission and all of that, that's a whole other topic. Just dealing with who you are and who you want to be in your relationship. Like, that's a lot. And then you throw in the expectations of your partner and whatever roles they expect for you to fulfill in said relationship.
But I think that's it. That conversation never happens. Or, two, what I expect of you, I'm focusing, I'm not saying that gender roles are the only reason.
No, yeah.
I'm focusing on gender roles because that's the point of this podcast. Or this episode of this podcast. But I think that's the key. And I think that goes back to gender roles. What I expect out of you is because of how I view gender roles. And what you expect out of me is because of how you view gender roles. But we view them differently as man and woman.
Right.
I view them as I like a mix. I'm okay with the woman being not professional, not the right word, but working, motivated. Like, I'm with that, but I don't think the house should suffer as a result of that. That's my perspective. A lot of women today would say, put the kids in daycare. I'm working.
Yeah.
And we're going to make money, and I'm going to educate myself, and I'm going to climb the corporate ladder, and I'm going to achieve everything that I can for me. And in a lot of cases, you are a sidekick, not a partner. And kids typically get left behind in that. And I personally believe that level of nurturing is necessary, especially in young Black kids. And I think it's been getting less and less. And I think that's why for a long time, and I'll speak specifically to men, because black men need moms too. I'm not saying that black men only need a man. They need a woman, and because I believe women have begun to branch out corporately, that nurturing side, that emotional side, that more sensitive side is being lost. And so men don't know how to handle a woman when she gets emotional, because they've never seen someone get emotional, or had to figure out how to navigate that. So then a woman then feels uncovered or unkept, or I can't be emotionally vulnerable to you. I can't come to you because when I come to you, you don't give me no. And it's because the man has never really been taught how to give it or what that looks like. We've only seen what we see on TV, which is men are tough. We look at the Fridays or all the gangster movies. None of those men are really romantic. They might do a little bit, but they're not holding the woman as she cries. Like, that ain't it. Like, it's just not. And I think in this microwave technology society, that plays a huge role. And what are you seeing? And for most cases, we see two professional people, both of them working, and they kind of deal with kids, but a lot of times the kids left on their own. And I think that's showing up, and definitely in our generation, and I think it's compounding in the next generation.
Yeah, the statistic, again, don't have that. Now is that a lot of people, younger people, our generation, so on and so forth, are waiting not only just to get married, but to have kids. I think it's in China, actually. Like, there's on such short supply of young people to procreate. Like, they're worried that a certain faction of the population might die out before they start to have kids. And I remember at one point in time, like, they really only wanted girls, or no, they wanted boys. And so, like,
I think they were like, if you had more than one girl, like, I think they killed your kid in China.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was.
I mean, I remember it was bad, but I didn't know it was that bad.
But I think two things. One, I'm going to take a slight detour. One, I think that's demonic. That mindset exists. And the reason I say that is because that's self-sabotage.
Yeah, for sure.
Because one, and I'm going to be honest, you ain't going to stop having sex. So the likelihood that you're not going to marry somebody, but you're not going to get pregnant either, is just unlikely. So you're going to have a bunch of different partners, which has its own issues. That's a bunch of different failed relationships that you're going to bring into a marriage. And then you're going to start having a kid when you hit your prime. Like, your 20s are not your prime. Like, I don't care what anyone tells you, unless you're Mark Zuckerberg or some child phenom, you don't hit your stride until your probably early to mid 30s, and then on. That's when you start owning your houses. That's when you've established yourself in your job. That's when you understand savings accounts. That's when you understand credit, because they don't teach you that in school. So once you finally hit your prime, and we watch like City on the Hill, which is fictional, but now that she's finally starting to push, now she gets pregnant.
Yeah, and wants to, yeah.
And she's wanted to have it. Those things don't work together. And so the idea that I'm going to wait until I'm 30s, until I hit my prime, and then have a kid. So what, are you going to now put your career on hold? Like, that's a huge strain on your relationship. And I think it's flawed to think that you're going to then find someone else at the right time that has no kids, has everything going for them, is going to want to potentially stop what they're doing, or they're going to keep doing what they're doing, and the kid is just going to be kind of left to a nanny or a babysitter. Like, it's just a flawed ideology, in my opinion. But I agree the statistics are alarming that that's where we're going. But I don't think that that's sustainable, and I don't think it's most effective. And, like, I'm glad we had the kids when we did, because I also don't want to be 50 years old with a 10-year-old. Like, I don't want to be trying to run up and down the field, or 60 years old going to my son or daughter's prom, and in my mid-60s when they finally graduate college. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, I'm going to be walking my daughter down the aisle when I'm 75.
My mom had a girlfriend. I think she had 2 sons, and 2 or 3 boys, and her youngest graduated from high school, and like right after or right around the time that he graduated from high school, she found out that she was pregnant, and she was in her 50s. And I just I mean, and she was excited because they'd always wanted a girl, but realistically at the same time it's like, dang, I couldn't, like, even with the boys, like, I was only, when I was 22 turning 23 when I had Courtney. And that was one thing. Like, you know, I had the energy and a super great support system. So I didn't really feel the impact of being a single mom. This time with the boys, I was 30. 32.
They're about to be 2. You're 32.
So 30, 31.
Yeah.
And it was a completely different experience. I was exhausted, and they are, like, I love them to death. They're the cutest little things that have ever happened to me after Courtney. But they are exhausting. I could not imagine doing this at 50 or, you know, any older.
But even, and you kind of hit me to this, like, once you hit 35, that's like a high.
Oh, yeah, that's considered a high risk pregnancy.
So if you're waiting to 30 to one even try and start a relationship, you get married at what age? Maybe 33. That's if you hit it off with the first person you meet. So if you date somebody for 6 months to a year and it fails, now you're 31. You take a little bit to recover depending on how that goes. You meet someone else, you start really kicking it with them at maybe 32. And then that takes maybe 2 to 3 years, and maybe that one works, but now you're 35 and you got married. If you wait, now you want to have kids and you just got married at 35. Like, the math is just, it doesn't add up. And that's assuming that you find somebody at that point that's at a great point in life. They don't got their own set of baggage and y'all just kick it. That's just not likely. Not to mention you're going to have the baggage from 16 to 30 of all the men or women you've been with and all the stuff that they done put you through that you're going to bring into that relationship. Like, it's just flawed. Super flawed. And then, like I said, and then if your kids follow the same pattern, like I said, you're going to be 70 or 80 years old hooking your kid down the aisle. Or giving your daughter away at 70 because she didn't get married until she was 35, 40. Like, that's nuts.
I mean, at that point, that I don't think that age or number particularly matters.
It does. Because then you want to be a grandparent.
Yeah.
So now I'm 80 years old with a 7-year-old granddaughter. That's ridiculous. That's insane.
Oh, jeez. So I guess question is there a place for gender roles in today's society? With the way that things are and the way that things are trending, is there a place for gender roles?
For me, 100%. I've shared, I 100% agree with gender roles. Go ahead.
But what does that look like for the woman who does want to do everything? She wants to be a mom. She wants to have a husband. She wants to also have a career and, you know, achieve goals and dreams. And then obviously the same thing vice versa for men. Because I know men who want kids but don't have them currently because they're focused on other things and they haven't found the right woman to, you know, who they want to have kids with.
For me, the short answer, the easiest kind of funny answer, you ain't gonna get a lot of sleep. You're not. If you want to go to work, raise your kids, and have a successful relationship, there's only so many hours.
Yeah, I know. Trust.
So if you think you're gonna get to sleep 8 hours a day while raising a kid, while running a business or owning a business or working a 9 to 5 with a potential commute, and have time for date nights and spending time with your spouse, you're not going to have enough sleep. You're not going to get a bunch of sleep. So you can go that route, or you potentially sacrifice one, which as a man, I would say the best option is the career. I don't want you to sacrifice our marriage, and I don't want you to sacrifice being a mother. So if one of the three has to go, for me, it would be the career. Now, if the man is asking, or that becomes a decision, then he got to figure out that side. If I'm sacrificing my career, that doesn't mean I should have to live a less than ideal life.
I 100% agree with that.
So whatever you got to do, if you want this house taken care of internally, you better take care of it externally. So if you got to go get a second job, if you got to stay up late at night, if you got to go get a trade, if you whatever it is you got to do, if you asking me to stay home, then you got to figure out a way to cover it. Now, we have kind of a balance where, one, because of COVID, but two, because while you're home and situations are different, I guess we're talking about people with kids. So in a situation where there's a kid, then technology has made it very easy, or much easier, for someone at home to start a business and make money. So I think that's a compromise that can exist if a woman wants to still have the professional ambition. Like, I think you got like 3 businesses at this point.
That sounds about right.
So like that can exist, and I think the man should fully support that. He don't got to agree with it. He might not understand it. I don't know how to color someone's hair at all. I don't know how to cut someone's hair. I don't know how to use a Cricut, but I do everything that I can to support it. When we got to go back to Walmart multiple times a week to get more vinyl, I do that. When t-shirts come in the mail, whatever it is, like, you got to support that. If that is an agreement that y'all come to. So I do think it's a balance as far as what it looks like. If a man wants a traditional wife, so to speak, that goes by the old gender roles, then he got to take the traditional man role and figure it out.
And so, again, back to a conversation that I frequently hear people have, is that everyone wants the traditional, quote-unquote, relationship. But a lot of times I feel like both the man and the woman, or men, have difficulties sacrificing what it looks like to have that traditional relationship. Like, a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but a lot of women in generations before were like abused. Like, granddad, yes, he was out there working and getting the coins, but a lot of times granddad had a whole another family somewhere else in the same city. Like, there are so many different nuances to that, I guess, that lifestyle that most women today, most men today, they're not going to put up with. Do you know how many women I know that can't cook? A lot. And I don't mean like they can't cook like I can cook. I mean like they can't cook. And to me, like, I don't even understand how that happened, because like me growing up, I used to be in the kitchen with my mom. Like, most of the stuff that I know is because my mom, like, those supreme grilling skills, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, I learned that from being around my mom, watching my mom do that. You know, there are a lot of things that I feel women are asking for, but realistically aren't willing to sacrifice to get. And to your point earlier, and I guess we're going to talk about Kevin Samuels in a second, and this is something that he brings up frequently, is that a lot of women are chasing after this top tier percent of men. They're making, 5-6 figures, they own this, they own that, they travel the world, they spare no expense, that kind of man. But realistically, they're not even on the level where they attract those kinds of men. And same thing, because guys want the Instagram baddie who makes her own money, and
that's not true.
There are plenty of guys that's what they want. I'm not saying that all guys want that.
Most men don't. Most men know what their league is.
I don't think that's true anymore.
And if a woman comes by that is out of their league and it mysteriously something happens, they hold on for dear life. Even today.
Not for dear life, though.
Even today. Most men know what to shoot for if they want a relationship. Now, if we're at a club or at a bar, of course I'm going to shoot my shot at the baddest. But I'm not trying to marry that. I just want to enjoy that for the time being. But I think typically, from what I've seen, and we can give different examples, most average working men, sure, they look at maybe the Instagram models, but they know they'll never have that. And they're okay with that.
Okay. So...
Because they know that woman will never give them a chance.
But that's not necessarily true.
That's the point of this conversation.
Yeah, I guess that is correct. Most of those women are also shooting for the top tier.
It works in Tyler Perry movies, it don't work in real life.
You said not Tyler Perry movies.
The mechanic is great in Tyler Perry movies. The mechanic in real life does not get the same look.
But mechanics make bank.
I'm not talking about
okay.
Right.
Okay.
The guy at Jiffy Lube down the street.
Yeah. Okay. So, it's not that I don't think that there's a place for gender roles in society. I just don't see people, how to put this? I don't see people getting out of their own way for it to work. Like, it's easier for me to use us as an example because I don't like to talk about other people's relationships. For example, us. When you told me originally that you wanted me to stay home after I had the boys, I was not happy. And that's how I'll put it.
That's fair.
I've pretty much always worked, and I've always enjoyed the work that I do. And personally, I don't like the idea of having to ask you for money when I want to do something. Get my hair done, get my nails done. Like, these are my thoughts. This is what I was thinking.
Okay, that's fair.
When you was like, stay home, don't go back to work yet. And so I'm like, but I did it because I saw the value in what you were offering. I've been able to stay home. I've been able to watch I stayed home for a year with Courtney. But then after that, like, right back to work. And so the boys are 18 months now? Mm-hmm. And it's been great to be here with them. It's been great to be here for Courtney, especially during all of this COVID stuff. I can't imagine if I was still working, how we would have balanced that. And for what it's worth, I know a lot of people have really struggled with balancing work and children and family during COVID. So I'm blessed to say that we were not affected really in any way with COVID.
It was positive from that reality.
Yeah, it was. But I still felt a way about not going back to work. And as soon, in my mind, I was like, as soon as I can, I'm getting a job and I'm going back to work. Even if that means all the money that I make is just going to daycare, which doesn't make sense. Realistically, it doesn't make sense. But in my mind, it took me a while to reconcile that. There are other women that, even though they know the amount of money that they're making is probably only going to cover daycare, they would still choose to go back to work because that freedom of working, or whatever you want to call it, grants them that you don't have the power over me financially. I see it in my mom groups all the time that letting someone be the sole financial decider, provider in your household is allowing them to have the power to decide whether you eat or starve. I'm like, what kind of mindset is that? Who are you dealing with that you would think that they would starve you? Like, that's a problem within your relationship, because that's not how it works. That's not how it's supposed to work. But I could understand where they were coming from, because you're not going to starve me or anything like that. But if I said, hey, babe, I want to go buy these bundles and they're like $600, like, I know how that conversation goes. And typically,
it's reason and fact based. It's not emotional.
It doesn't go well. And for me, it's like, well, if I had a job, I could go and do that and it not be an issue. Because I would still spend the money myself, personally, because it's something that I want.
Which would be a bad investment.
To you.
No. If you look at financial facts, and I'll use our scenario, financially, I'm more responsible.
Well, for sure. I'm not saying that you're not.
So, also to the original point, if our kids were being raised by one person who was financially irresponsible, there's a good likelihood, one, they would be impacted, and two, they would reiterate that process as they got older.
Mm-hmm.
And now I got a young man that had 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, that don't know how to manage money. And trust me, education is not going to treat you and show you how. So, fortunately, there's a balance. And when we talk, again, to gender roles, if as a woman you honor the gender roles, or the husband to be a leader and a end-all be-all or whatever you want to put on it, typically, in sensitive times of discussion, there's reason, there's rhyme, there's fact, there's receipts as to why men do things. Men don't want to argue. We can, and we've learned, but we don't want to do that. Not with a woman, not with a spouse, over stuff that we typically deem as dumb. We have more important things to do, like watch the draft.
Oh my God.
Or play video games. Or go to the gym. Or watch a show. I didn't say I'm going to do it. This isn't just me. I'm speaking for all men. We have more important things to do than argue with y'all about money. Especially when we've assessed the history. Are all men good with money? No. There are women. We met one in, where was we at? Cancun or wherever. Azumel Beach.
Cabo.
No. What was you just at? Riviera Maya. What was the?
Oh, you were in Tulum.
Excuse me. Whatever. We met an accountant. I would like to believe that she's good with money. Because she's an accountant. So this isn't to say that all women are bad with money and can't manage finances. I'm not saying that at all. But traditionally and historically, that's been a men thing. And usually, in my experience, men are good at that. And so I think that is where gender roles factor. And in gender roles, I also don't think it has to be exclusive to an activity. Like, if you're better, say you were better at doing money, you should do the money. That should be your thing. I don't think washing dishes is a woman role. But being in the house, taking care of the house could be a woman role. And what that looks like is different in every person's relationship.
I was going to say, because that's not true. Like, you don't wash dishes because you don't think that you should have to wash dishes.
So, you're right. Because you're here all day.
And so are you.
And I'm stuck at a computer working.
Mm-hmm.
The kids give you 2 to 3 hours every day when they nap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that. And then I get off, and then I want to be a dad. So, if you were working every day, or say the roles were reversed, the dishes would get washed. I did live on my own. I didn't have dishes in my sink. I didn't use a dishwasher. These are the dishwasher.
Not these.
The same way, as soon as I get back from vacation, I unpack all my clothes. Almost all my clothes are washed and dried and put away in a day or two.
That's because you're insane.
No, that's who I am.
Right, only crazy people do that.
Okay, then I'll own that. But the same way I am about that is the same way I'm with dishes. My house stayed vacuumed, my bathroom stayed clean, and if I didn't feel like doing dishes, I cooked in a way that I didn't have to do dishes. I used minimal pots and pans. I used plastic forks, plastic knives,
Paper plates.
Paper plates. So, you adjust for things you don't want to do. But again, I and other men and other women are capable. I know women that can cut the grass. They don't want to cut the grass. With your allergies, if you had to cut the grass all the time,
I'd be miserable.
like, but that's okay because it works for us. But cooking is another thing. That I think goes both ways. I don't know a lot of women. I know some women that can cook, but I know a lot of men that can cook as well. So what the gender role is defined for you in your relationship. But I do believe that there should be an understanding because I think it helps with the communication and it helps with the expectations and stuff don't fall through the cracks.
I agree with that portion. I don't know about some of the other stuff he said because, you
Spitting facts.
or something. It is what it is.
If I say it, it's rooted in fact.
It's rooted in fact. Just okay.
It is. I don't just be flying off the handle saying all kind of crazy stuff.
You do sometimes though.
When?
Like, I can't give you an exact example, but you be saying things and I look at you because it's crazy.
And if you challenge me on it, I'll back it up.
Just because you can back it up doesn't make it factual.
It is. I back it up with
means
facts.
you know how to argue your point.
With
The
reason.
great debater. That's what you need to start saying in your intro. Raymond Bond, the great debater.
Well, I don't want to debate you. We just discuss things.
Yeah, but a lot of times our discussions turn into debate.
I mean, it's over pretty quick because
You win.
I know.
Anyway, moving right along. So, I don't know if you guys have heard of this character, this gentleman. He is a self-described image consultant, lifestyle, relationship coach, Kevin Samuels.
Boss. My man.
Ray loves him. Ray loves him because
Shout out
Kevin
to Ish
Samuels.
for letting me know that this man exists. And I hope he is grooming more men like him.
Kevin Samuels is he owns, I guess he has a few different businesses, but he does have a YouTube channel, podcast, whatever you want to call it, in which he...
Tell it like it is.
Yep, that's how we're going to put it.
Unapologetic.
He is very... What's the word?
Straightforward.
Whew, yes, he is very straightforward. Last December, he went viral because of a video segment that he did. And it's I think on YouTube now it's called Average at Best. And in this video, like, I did finally watch it after watching some other things of his. A young woman calls into his show, and the show was actually about one thing, but she called in and kind of interrupted what that particular episode was supposed to be about. But being who he is, he addressed her anyway. She was seeking advice. She was seeking advice because she's 35 years old, single parent, 6-figure business owner, and she was...
A 5 with no makeup.
Wait, before we get there, she was disappointed in the fact that the relationships she had been having over the last several years were not resulting in what she wanted. And she was saying to Kevin, who is the worst person to ever say this to...
Or the best.
The worst person to say this to. She was saying that she was dating people who were beneath her. And they were beneath her because they didn't earn six figures. She didn't feel like they were ambitious enough, and she just didn't feel like they were giving her what she deserved, and that a man who makes six figures would. Kevin Samuels is brutally honest with people, men and women.
But that's the thing. To his credit, he tries to not be that way.
He does,
but
to an extent.
And I'll use for what this episode would have been. Women are stubborn and hard-headed, and
so are men.
Okay, I didn't say they weren't. I'm saying in relation to the episodes we've seen, and in relation to his shows, the reason he has to get to where you're going to go is because they don't get it.
We'll continue. Kevin is brutally honest. He has built his platform on being brutally honest, not just with women, but both with men, with being realistic about who they are and what they are looking for in relationship to who they are and what they bring to the table, be it with their looks, financial stability, just life baggage, like where they are in their life, that they feel that they deserve X person. And basically, this young lady, he had to give her a little tough love because like she was asking him for advice, but she wasn't receiving it. She was asking, well, why can't I date a man who makes six figures? And his simple question was, well, do you know any men who make six figures who aren't related to you? And she's like, no. And he asked her, do you know what those men are looking for? And she called off some things. And as a man who makes six figures, he's like, no, we don't really want any of that. We don't really care about any of the stuff that you're listing.
She could plant.
Yeah, she could plant. And she could talk business with them. Kevin Samuels is also really, really honest with people about their appearance, because whether you want to admit it or not, we are human, and we like things that look good. We like things that are attractive to us. I'm not saying that everybody's a 10, but Kevin Samuels lets everybody know that you're not a 10. Like, on your best day, with no makeup, no fitty cap, no bling bling, no nothing, what are you really? I can't remember what he calls it. It's like the sex, what is it?
Some kind of sexual value, but
yeah,
SWV, I believe it was called, but I don't remember.
Yeah, he's got a scale, basically, in which he values people on. And so he asked the young lady, honestly, like, what do you think you are? If you take off the wig and the lashes, like, first thing in the morning, what do you think you are? And he said, you can't say 7. And I don't understand, I guess that's what everybody says, a 7. And she said, I think a 6, 5 or 6.
She said she's a 5 with no makeup. And then when she puts makeup on,
she's a 6. Okay. And so he tells her, well, that means you're average. At best, average. And the women that are chasing after that top tier of man that you want, most of them are an 8, average. And that's including, I guess that top tier of women who are also probably making good money. They probably don't have a bunch of kids. There's all these things that he listed off as. And not just this video, there have been several videos at this point that I have watched of his. I could hear why people disagree with him, because he can sound really insulting. But if you listen to what he's saying at its core, he's really right about people's expectations. And we've talked about it a little bit here, but your expectations of what you want in a partner. and what realistically you can get that will make you happy. And there was another episode called High Value Men Cheat. And you sent me I think the other day on, I think, social media, Tristan Thompson is cheating on Khloe Kardashian again. Jay-Z cheated on Beyonce. Like, those...
A-Rod cheated on J-Lo.
Right. Like, those men who have the baddest women, or whatever you want to call them, they still cheat. And...
Quavo, Sweetie.
Quavo, Sweetie. Those men, and even you said this, there's an expectation of them to cheat because of who they are, what they have, and what they bring to the table. And I listened to that episode, and while I didn't agree with it, I don't have to tolerate a high value man cheating, because then that's not my perspective. But that's something you said too. There's an expectation of men who are in those positions, they're probably going to cheat. And if they get away with it once, they'll probably keep doing it. And I guess the thing that I do appreciate about Kevin Samuels is, even though it sucks, is his honesty and what he's saying to people. Because, I mean, like, I didn't think the girl was ugly. Like, she was... What?
The 35-year-old, the 13-year-old with the baby daddy issues?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't think she was ugly.
Okay, yeah, sure. But she was average. She made above average money and an average body with a below average lifestyle.
Well, she said that her body was above average. She was like a size 3 with bang, bang, and bang, bang.
Okay. I didn't see that in the video.
I didn't either.
But, again, you're a 35-year-old single woman with a 13-year-old with baby daddy issues, and you can plant. Like, again, that's why I alluded to earlier. Just because you make 6 figures doesn't make you an above average woman. It means you have above average income. But all that other stuff, we don't want that. And especially those men. I'm not even that man. Like, I would love to be that man as far as
You will be one day, babe.
For sure. And to his point, most men that you see with an average woman that hit that top 5, top 1% is because the woman they're with, they built with. We were watching the NFL draft earlier. The women that go along, Patrick Mahomes, who married his wife, like, she's cool.
Well, they just got engaged. They're not married yet.
Okay, you might be right. Yeah, okay.
They had the baby, though.
But they've known each other. A lot of these men that marry these quote-unquote maybe average women, they didn't meet them in the prime of their career. They met them when they were trying to get to the mountaintop. And then they held them down and they got married. Bravo for them. But when you're that dude and every Instagram model is always in your DMs and you are, what was Emmitt Smith? The 5'4".
She was 5'8".
Oh yeah, 5'8", 220. And you can't compete. That is just the reality. And it no matter how much money you make, you can't compete. When Kardashian lookalikes are everywhere, he opened his phone, Twitter, Instagram, when everybody's stroking his ego, and God forbid he coming home to you and you're trying to tear him down because you're insecure, like, it ain't gonna work. And he just communicates that. Like, there has to be a level of realism. And it doesn't mean that you're like a trash woman because you're dating a man that makes $60,000 a year. Like, outside of in certain areas of of America, $60,000 a year is good money.
Really good money, yeah.
Now, if you live in New York, San Fran, Houston, the DMV, Miami, okay, yeah, that 60 ain't gonna take you far. But generally speaking, that's solid. And because those men recognize what they can get, when that 5 making $100,000 comes along, it's like, thank God. Like, oh, I didn't hit the lottery. And so they're going to treat you a certain type of way. But when you keep shading them.
Yeah, no man's going to tolerate that, no matter how much money you make.
No, but I'm saying when you shade those men that have approached you at the bar, that you, his clothes is awful. He wearing, Rockaware, or I don't know, what, the U.S. Polo Association or something like that. And you shade him because of the clothes he's wearing. And you're waiting for the guy with the Gucci belt and the Versace sunglasses to come over. He probably ain't coming to you. He gonna go to the other girl that's a lot more attractive than you are, without all the makeup. And if you gotta always spend $600-$700 on bundles for your hair to look decent because your edges is beat, or you gotta have the most expensive makeup because you aren't that attractive, and you gotta get surgery to get your body to look a certain type of way because you won't put the work in or whatever it is. Like, you're not going to get that type of guy. And so if you humble yourself the way ugly men have had to humble themselves for a long time, you'll be a lot more happy.
Oh, man. So I brought Kevin Samuels up because I found this one quote that he said, and I really liked it. Basically, he says, "We ask so much of each other without realizing how much of a sacrifice it is to give someone what they want physically, mentally, and financially. Women want a financially stable, young, sensitive man capable of violence, and men want a chaste, sexually liberated mother who also can host dinner parties. It's just not realistic."
It's not.
And so, to the first portion of the what he said, it's true. I'd like to, like I said, I would have liked to thought that when we got into our relationship, like, there were a lot of things I knew I wasn't going to deal with because of what I had dealt with in previous relationships. And there are a lot of things that I knew I wanted from our relationship. And now here we are, almost 2 years in. Our anniversary is in like 6 days. I'm so excited. Almost 2 years in, and I'm realizing while there are a lot of things that you definitely check off on the list of things that I thought I wanted, there are a few things that I've realized that I didn't know I needed in a partner. And fortunately, you provide those things. And then there are things about myself that I didn't know that I needed you to give me. I guess maybe emotionally is the best way to put that. That I didn't realize that I needed that from you, and we're working through how to bridge that gap. And then I'm sure there are things that you want from me that, same way, however you want to put it. But I think that's how a lot of people go into relationships now. They have this list. And if a person doesn't check A through Z on that list, then the person's not worth their time. And
while not willing to change themselves.
Exactly. But then not realizing or not doing enough self-reflection to realize, maybe I might have some issues within me why the relationships that I want, I can never have. Like, for women, unfortunately for a lot of Black women, attitude problem. Don't know where that comes from. Don't know what that is. But it's a thing. Attitude problem. And I know enough women who have the attitude problem who are just fine with having the attitude problem, and their stance and mindset is, well, if somebody's going to be with me, they're just going to accept it. And unfortunately, that's not really the case. It can be entertaining for a while for a man to deal with your mouth or your attitude or you wanting to be in charge or the lead all the time. But eventually, said man gets tired of that. That's just what it is. It's how men work. They don't want to be challenged at every step and everything that they do. And you have women who don't care. And to Kevin Samuels' point, they will probably end up either in a relationship they're not really happy in, or they will end up in no relationship at all. And vice versa. Men also have issues that they expect for a woman to fulfill. Or, I can't speak for a man. Like, I don't know. But I've seen things, men who have issues, they refuse to deal with said issues, get in a relationship, and expect for someone to deal with those issues, whether it be being super introverted or, whatever the case may be. And they have this woman, and the woman's like, well, I don't know what you expect me to do to fix what's wrong with you. And I'm here, but this isn't working. So what am I supposed to do? I think that happens all the time.
I agree and I disagree. I agree that men, and I'll speak from the man perspective, I agree that men, in my experience, typically don't open up to women. But in a lot of cases, it's because they don't believe opening up to women is safe. Opening up to a woman leaves you super vulnerable, and in too many instances, and I'll speak from my life, when I've opened up to a woman, it's been thrown back in my face at the most inopportune times. And I've talked to a lot of men who have dealt with, and I'm going to label it this way, and I could be wrong because I have limited experience, but typically I've seen that with black women. And that's the generation before me, and that's my current generation, and from what I see on the internet and from what I'm hearing, it's the generation to come. They cut, it's like police. Police shoot to kill, women cut to kill. They cut deep to end the argument to win. And when you do that, you can apologize, you can have your little makeup sex, you can cook them a dinner to think it made up, but that wound is deep. And when a man comes to you and you embarrass him or play him, men are ego, men are prideful. And we have to be that way. You want somebody to protect you and care for you and love you. The reason men do that is because they take pride in that role. They take pride in being a man and being a king and being esteemed. And so when you cut that off all the time and you castrate a man, he's never going to open up to you. You're not safe. It's hard enough for men to find a safe space as is. And when they finally open up, you destroy that, you can cancel Christmas. Like,
Not cancel Christmas.
Like, that's just dead. That part of your relationship is dead, and it'll be dead for a long time. And so I don't disagree that men don't open up. But I think in a lot of cases, and we're low on time, I think women have failed to take their responsibility for why men are the way men are. And I'm not blaming women for all things, but I think there are a lot of things that women have become taboo or are a part of women culture that has impacted the way that men interact with women, and especially today, and the way men treat women, is because of the way women carry themselves. And if every time I come to you with an issue, I already got to be on defense because I know you're about to pop off with an attitude, it's probably not going to be a very effective communication. And we're probably going to have a lot of problems. And eventually, we're going to cheat. And in a lot of cases, that goes both ways, because I believe women cheat as much, if not more, than men. Historically, they're just better at hiding it. But it's a lot to unpack. And in this hour and a half we had is not nearly enough to really get into it. But I know we wanted to talk about, this aspect of relationships and the importance that gender role plays. And I'll end with this, and I'll let you kind of give your 2 cents as we wrap up. But I think gender roles are a good thing. I think gender roles need to be clearly communicated, and I believe they need to be clearly respected. And I believe if we got back to that without belittling a woman and forcing her to be tied to a bed, then I think the world can be a much better place, and divorce rates and relationships can be a lot more healthy, and kids will see a lot better examples of what true love and what relationships look like. But as long as we have this fight over who's in control and who's the boss, and that's unshaken or unstable, then we're going to keep getting what we get, and it's a mess.
I agree with what you just said to an extent. I think gender roles, again, they have their place for each individual relationship. And then the more clearly that those roles are defined within individual relationships, I think you see better communication, and that just leads to better people all around. I think obviously people who can communicate with their spouse or people who they work with or whatever, those are great people, and they make the world go around. I would say that I don't necessarily see a lot changing as far as gender roles go in the future, just because I see where culture is headed. Again, as you get more of what we currently see in society, it gets more and more okay to be the type of people who disrespect each other on whatever levels. It gets more okay to, not know how to compromise with someone because of the lack of being able to communicate with them effectively of what you need from them. So I would like to think that at some point people will learn I think it boils down to communication. And the better people learn how to communicate with each other, it's the better you understand expectations of the people you're in relationship with, whether it be platonic or, sexual, whatever. And I think that's my take. That's how I feel. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we appreciate all y'all joining us. We would love to hear your feedback. Hopefully we were able to provide you some entertainment, some insight, some nuggets to think about, take back to your significant others, even to your kids if you want. Kids need to start learning at some point. Mom and dad's trash. And they need to get better. But again, thank you so much. Like, share, subscribe. YouTube. You can follow us again on all social media, Facebook, Instagram. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Keep on listening. Until next week.